Hello, and welcome back to all of our returning watchers and listeners. My name is Michelle, and I'm joined with Travis, a dork.
100%.
Not really. He is our veteran subject matter expert, actually, on all things Lost. And of course, we are regularly joined by Cecily, who is my vlog partner, as well as Max, who is off screen. But no, welcome back. And of course, welcome to all of our new watchers and listeners. This is Ride the Stream, and we are in our second season of discussing each episode of the seminal series Lost that aired back in, I think, 2004 through about 2010. Um, I, as I said before, Travis is our veteran. I'm the newbie, so each episode is brand new for me. And there's Cleo, um, sighting number two on screen for those
Ding. Yeah.
keeping tabs. Uh, but yeah, exciting episode. If you're ready, Travis, I'll just kind of jump into the plot synopsis,
Let's
and
go. Let's
then
do it.
we'll get going on our discussion. All
Sounds
right.
good.
So here we go, and I'm gonna read, so that way I don't have to like try to remember everything, because of course every episode is jam-packed with stuff, all the good stuff. I'll present highlights though, and there's some spoilers, so just FYI. There's Sam 3. Gosh, they're just coming out of the woodwork this morning. Okay, here we go. Titled Adrift. The continuing Lost story reveals the aftermath of the raft survivors' run-in with the shady sailors demanding they hand over Walt, and of course the ensuing brief exchange of gunfire. We learn that Sawyer has been shot in the shoulder, and while Michael may be unharmed physically, emotionally, all the past trauma of losing Walt the first time comes roaring back to the forefront of Michael's mind. Hence, the source of our flashback scenes in this episode. Michael and Sawyer argue and hurl blame back and forth, but when their survival is tested, they find common ground and a pontoon to work together. Eventually, they drift home, the now familiar island. Although Michael and Sawyer are adrift for most of this episode, the initial episode of the second season is revisited from different character perspectives, Kate and John. We see their interaction with our mystery man, Desmond, in his underground bunker. We learn that Desmond is perhaps sponsored or hosted by a company called Dharma. He has to input a code, conveniently Hurley's numbers, in regular intervals, otherwise, something is likely to happen. John relays details about the survivors. Desmond asks if any of them have died from the sickness. John makes Desmond think that Kate is the dangerous one of the duo, when Desmond initially wants Kate to tie up John. However, John spins that Kate is the fugitive of the group. Geez, John, really? You got to bring that up? John obviously is the peaceful dude from the survivors. Insert sarcasm here. Anyway, she is left tied up in the food stores. All she focuses on is the ceiling air vent until she sees some chocolate candy bars. My kind of woman. Side note, Apollo is a fictional candy bar, by the way. But initially, I actually thought it was a Yorkie candy bar from the UK, based on the look of the packaging. Anyway, she sees all that transpires between Desmond, John, and Jack from her hidden vantage point in the venting system. Lost leaves us with quite the zinger in the closing moments of this second episode, As Michael and Sawyer stagger back onto the beach, Sawyer realizes that he hears Jin yelling. The shackled Jin, that poor man is always shackled, joins
Can't
Sawyer
catch a
and
break.
Michael. Yeah, and Jin is not alone. The others are in hot pursuit, giving vibes of an adult version of Lord of the Flies slash The Hills Have Eyes. There we go.
Mm, well
Now,
done.
yeah, thank you. And now, even though Travis, you've seen this is your multi-view. Do you have any initial thoughts? And then I'll share mine.
Um, I don't know how the previous watches of this episode hit, but I guess I was more struck on the repetition from episode one.
Hmm.
Um, and because it's the first time I can think of where they kind of switch their storyline structure, where it was your typical flashback in present day, and they actually flashed to last week's episode to recount from different perspectives. I like the different perspectives. Um, I'm just wondering because I can't remember the structure of season two, if that will continue.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm curious from a creative standpoint, what made them kind of do it this way instead of saying, okay, let's cover all the bits from last week all together with Kate and John's perspective. Because they probably could have ended the episode before Jack went down there. And the
Hmm.
reveal could have been when John finds Kate, and then we see them at gunpoint at Desmond, and that could have been like the end of the episode, and that could have been the reveal from the flashback. Um,
Hmm.
but I also know the connective tissue with Jack, so it makes sense. I think so. I think that was the only question mark about the storyline structure I had, like whether or not I was thrilled about it, but I still really enjoy the interaction between like Sawyer and Michael on the raft. Something as simple as them being adrift and they're still able to make it like entertaining. Um, I mean, Sawyer pulls out a bullet with his fingers, which is crazy.
I know.
Um,
I had that in my notes. I'm kind of like, okay, this is a tough guy.
yeah. Um, and I don't know. I just rewatching flashbacks with Michael and Susan.
Hmm.
Seemed like that was also a little bit of we kind of know what happened here. It just made me mad to see her again because she's so unlikable. Um, I think those are the biggest takeaways. I think there are a few moments where I was like, okay, those are really great moments, and the episode overall is fine to good. Um, I think I just had this is the first time where I've like, hmm, the the structure of the episode. I'm a little the first time I think I recall questioning the that
Hmm.
space. So,
Yeah.
what about you as your first viewing?
Oh, I think you and I are on the same page actually, because watching this episode, I wondered, like you, why the departure from a successful story narrative formula um, in this episode. And so then I was thinking about, okay, well, did we learn anything new? Or even little tidbits, something. So the only, and I didn't like, I'm stockpiling it away, but I feel that like initially based on what we're seeing, what's been unfolded, I do kind of like, well, what is really things that we learned from the different perspective? I think one of the big things is that Desmond's been there a long time. Now we have some company called Dharma. Who are they? They obviously put him in this, underground bunker. But he's been there for a really long time. So has he been forgotten? There's some sort of mechanism that he has to insert those numbers in order to keep something from happening. And that's a regular interval. So he can't, like, if he leaves the bunker, he can only do it for, you know, a short period of time, probably.
Yeah.
So we get a little bit of that. We find out that chocolate is still a girl's best friend. Uh, yay! I think I'd be pretty sad 44 days and no chocolate. Oh,
And I
I don't
think we
know about
all
that.
understanding her taking a pause to eat some before hiking through the air duct. I
Mhm.
mean, I think that's every single one of us.
Yeah. Well, and especially when you look around and here's like this treasure trove of all this different food, and she picked the chocolate bar. I'm like, yeah. Um, like you, I actually thought that the tension, the way of introducing the flashbacks for Michael this episode. I mean, I think they did a great job. The fact that they were basically contained on a raft in the middle of nowhere with no real exterior interaction other than the shark spoiler. Um, but the way they're able to introduce that concept of trauma and guilt and how easily something can trigger it and cause it to come rushing back. So we get that very strong with Michael. And like you, I'm like, oh gosh darn it. Susan's back and she's still spinning her and framing things in a way that uses Walt, and it just really pissed me off.
Yeah.
I was angry and spent some time of this episode just really pissed off. So
Yeah.
um and I'm sure we'll
And her
revisit that.
attorney
Oh, what a you know, the capital B for sure.
is
For
awful.
sure.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, I thought, we didn't really have a lot of I mean, we had new ground obviously with Michael and Sawyer and then with Jen showing up. I think the other thing that by revisiting, it was a good reminder that, oh, Charlie still has the Virgin Mary that he's carrying around. So that kind of, I had forgotten about that until I saw it, and then I was like, oh shit, he still
Same.
has that thing.
I was like,
Oh, that's gonna
damn it,
play.
Charlie.
Charlie, you got to get rid of it. And of course, he says he keeps it around just in case he needs it. And I'm
He
like,
said, yeah,
dude,
it'd be nice to have it around or something. It was like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah. And of course, Claire says, oh, I didn't know you were so religious. And I'm like, well, actually, his backstory is that he was actually a very religious person. And he probably, even though he maybe backslid with drive shaft years, that's still his foundation and, part of his trauma growing up,
yeah,
as they all have their their story of hard knocks getting to where they're at on the island. So yeah, I think you and I picked up on all the same things regarding this episode. And yeah, I think my initial thoughts pair right with what you were thinking. So
yeah. I do think it's amazing though when we get characters who we consider vile. Um, not just Susan, but her lawyer, and just I can't imagine being questioned in that way. Um, as a father, just like, oh, well, you haven't seen your son in 14 months, and it's like, one, Michael was in an accident, hospital bound for however long.
multiple surgeries apparently that we were unaware of.
Susan took him to a different continent. Like,
Yeah, and it was against his wishes, and I was like, okay, Walt, I know you, excuse me, Michael, I know you don't have the best attorney. You have budget attorney on your side of the table, but having watched we've all watched the true crime, all the mysteries and things like that. Why wasn't his attorney objecting, or at least somehow in that disposition saying that, hey, Susan took Walt out of the country
Yeah.
without his wishes. And, she spun it that it was okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll work this out. And then suddenly it's not working out, and then he ends up in his accident. That there should have been more of that revelation in that whole conversation.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
Susan to meet with him, without her turning and saying that, oh, well, I think you're gonna win. I'm like, well, I don't know, because financially, obviously, she does present the fact that financially she's the better person. And it's interesting that she brings up the financial. It's not the emotional support or emotional stability or anything like that. It's the fact that she can financially take care of Walt. And if we all remember, which wasn't really mentioned, Brian, the new boyfriend and eventual husband, I was just trying to get into Susan's pants, and faking that he had any interest in Walt, which we find out that he didn't, and immediately gave him up as soon as Susan was dead and buried.
It doesn't
So,
seem like she did a great job either. It seemed like the nanny
mm-mm.
had more to do with Walt's upbringing than her.
Yeah,
Um, so it's really frustrating. Um, and then, like you said, connecting that to Michael on the raft or in the water, you know, just still screaming for Walt, wanting him back. And he's screaming for him in the water so much that he doesn't care about looking behind him to see, hey, there's something I could like hold on to. And Sawyer like pushes the whatever is left of the raft over him to try to get him out of the water and
yep.
basically rescues him with CPR. And like that's how flustered and panicked and he didn't care about anything else. Because he already knows how bad it felt to
The first
lose
time.
him before. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah, that was
yeah,
just so heartbreaking, that the whole regurgitating of that past. And, this was, we now know that Michael did fight for Walt,
yeah,
and how it is that he ended up giving up Walt, being basically manipulated again, and even to an extent, Susan being manipulated by Brian. And the fact that for all of her smarts, she didn't see that coming up. So,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it really did seem like, the whole conversation with the two of them without the lawyers towards the end was just, I think she didn't want to go to court, regardless of whether or not she was going to win or not. Like, I think she just didn't want to court and spend the time and
yeah.
deal with it anymore. She just, I think, wanted to spin it, manipulate, and get Michael to back off as if he's the person in the wrong by wanting to be a father. Like,
Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting that her attorney said, he says, well, I'm the father. And she says, oh, well, Susan's attorney says, speak up so we can record that, and I'm like, what a biatch, man. And it's like, but at the same time, it's like, he's standing up for his parental rights. Yeah, heartbreaking. I was mad. I was so
yeah,
pissed off. I'm like, oh my goodness, just really. But it definitely helps to give context to the deeper anguish, and struggles that Michael's feeling, and the guilt,
yeah.
uh, unresolved guilt. So,
Yeah, because they ultimately I know Sawyer and Michael spent their time blaming each other throughout the episode, but
yeah.
the at the end, Michael blames himself because he put Walt on the raft. Um, but I mean, no one could have expected a kidnapping, I guess, on the water. Like that's
No, but I think, and I think we discussed this um towards the end of season one when Michael says, "No, you're coming on the raft," basically, and Walt didn't want to.
yeah.
But I think that he was damned if he did, damned if he didn't, because of the threat. The threat was whether he was on the island or not. So, I mean, but hindsight is 2020. Hopefully,
And I was gonna say, to be fair to Michael, he did offer to stay,
that's true. He did.
and Walt was ultimately like, nope, we got to go.
Yeah.
So, uh, you know, I guess in that instant, um, they both agreed on something,
Hmm.
like which wasn't many times throughout most of the season. So,
Yeah.
um, but I can understand his feelings of guilt there. That's an awful scene when Sawyer wakes up and Michael is just bawling his eyes out. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's such a heartbreaking scene. And you can just see Sawyer looking there. I mean, he's just watching him for a few seconds before he even asks if Michael's okay, because I think he understands like how or maybe he doesn't even understand like how Michael is struggling. So,
Yeah.
um,
Because we don't know if Sawyer is a parent. We know what he went through as a child. Um, but it was unfair of Michael to say that, Sawyer doesn't understand because he can have empathy based on his own experience. And obviously, he is moved by the child's experience,
yeah,
based on his history.
yeah.
We're going to
Ooh,
take a break and come back.
sounds good. Hey everyone, this is Travis with Ride the Stream. I just want to give a big thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you for following along our journey as we go down the rabbit hole. We are currently in Lost Season 2. So thank you to everyone who's participated in clicking on the video, even if it's to keep it on the background to listen while you're doing other things. If you can, if you're new to Ride the Stream, please subscribe. Make sure to give this a video a like and share it with anyone who's interested in Lost. We've also covered Raiders of the Lost Ark and recently The Martian, which should be out soon for coverage. Um, so thank you, and we'll get back to the conversation.
Okay, after our short little break there. Um, was there any other points of the scenes with Michael and Sawyer that you wanted to discuss?
Um, no, I know we were talking about that sequence when Sawyer wakes up to find Michael bawling. I think that, I mean, that's one of our questions, but that's up there
Yeah,
for potential top scenes for me. Just because it's so real. Like it's one of those things you just can't imagine how awful that must feel
yeah,
to lose your kid that way. So, and that he's going through it again. Like, so
yeah, yeah, definitely. I will say that, at the end we do get to see Jen, and I don't know about you, I was so relieved. Even though he was shackled and his arms is behind his back and he's running and he's obviously stressed. I don't know. I was so glad to see him because I
yeah,
was worried that somehow he dropped off the series or something, and we weren't going to have, well, maybe we were going to have a resolution that we didn't want. So I was so glad to see him. I don't know about you when the first time you saw it, if you were relieved to see him come running around the that
yeah.
alcove.
Well, at the beginning of the episode, Sawyer hears Jen shouting, and then we don't see him again, and was like, did they just drown Jen? Like,
I know. Yeah,
so that was my like kind of I think first thought during my initial watch of the series was like, oh crap. It's kind of like when Saeed left on his walk
Hmm.
and it was like, oh my gosh, is he done with the series? Like he's leaving the group, and I kind of had that sense with Jen. So I totally agree when they land and you hear him in the background. I'm like, oh, thank God! Like he he's not gone. Okay,
Yeah, I was like, oh, yay, he's back. He's back.
yeah. And
So,
how that's from where he started as a character, and then understanding all the ins and outs of what have happened in the past to being like a Jin. Like I don't think anyone was saying that early on in this in the first season.
no, and I feel like all three of these characters are kind of like diamond in the rough, as a way of kind of their tapestry between the three of them, that they all have some pretty rough exteriors. But when you kind of peel that back, there really is a lot to who they are. And you do feel for each one of them, especially as you get to know more and more about their backstory,
Yeah,
and why they react or, lash out the way that they do. And I think one thing that we didn't talk about was the Michael scene when he's at the park and he meets Susan and a very young Walt, who's like what, maybe two and a half or something like that. He's not very old.
yeah,
And I was gonna insert joke that wow, they got that actor Walt. Well, they really, really planned ahead. But I anyway, I'm sure it was a different actor. But oh, just how touching that was. And I really, as the growth, the trait growth of Michael in that scene, um, was incredible and just incredibly heartbreaking and touching, and just such a hard scene to watch.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Eyes watering,
mhm,
for sure. And when he says dad or daddy for the first time, they show Walt look up, and like that gave Michael, I feel like it gave recognition that Walt at a young age maybe understands who he is.
yeah,
Um, I know it seemed like Michael took it that way. Um,
yeah.
yeah, again, oh, just devastating. And the actor um who plays Michael's incredible performance. He does a
Hmm.
great job um
Yeah. And
showcasing
just,
what it means to be a dad. Like,
yeah. And really, I think as an actor, finding the control to show enough emotion outward, but being able to hold so much more back behind his eyes and in his deliverance and pacing. What I mean, an incredible scene. Very,
yeah.
very powerful. So, yeah, I wanted to mention, touch on that one, as well. And of course, we got an Easter egg in that scene too.
Oh, was the stuffed animal?
White, the white polar bear. I was like, caught it.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was clever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, let's see. Let's maybe shift gears. Usually we talk about who our favorite character is of the episode. But I'm thinking maybe we start with a favorite scene as a change of pace. And
I,
so, Travis, what was your favorite scene of the episode? And did you have
okay.
any reps? I'm sure
I
you did.
I listed two.
Okay.
Um and I'll list them as my runner-ups because as we were talking, I didn't mention a scene because it's just like soul crushing in a way, but
Mm-hmm.
the runner-ups, I really like the scene with Locke telling Desmond to tie Kate up. Because at first I was like, all right, what's his angle? Because Locke is smart and
Mm-hmm.
he wouldn't just throw Kate under the bus for nothing.
Right.
And so after he ties her up and he tucks the knife into her pants, I was like, okay. And then she gets it because she's first like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like what the hell, John? So I really like that sequence. I you mentioned it, Jen running out, seeing him alive, and then as he's getting untied, he just keeps saying others, others, others. That's a
Hmm.
great scene. Uh, but I'm gonna go back to Sawyer waking up and but first you see Michael on the whatever's left of the raft, the pontoon, and he's
Hmm.
just crying his eyes out. He's not quiet about it.
Yeah.
And after a minute, Sawyer wakes up and he just watches him for a second before asking him, "You all right, Mike?" And that just it shows a level of compassion with Sawyer.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier, like he has that within him. He doesn't because I think we covered in the first season. I think Sawyer wants to be good. He just doesn't necessarily know how to do it all the time. And he's so
Yeah.
likable that you want to root for him, even when he's like bit of a dick sometimes.
Well,
But in that
and
moment,
yeah. And you know
like,
that a lot of what he's putting out there is his defense mechanisms based on what we've seen of his backstory.
yeah,
So, yeah, you can kind of like, yes, okay, Sawyer, your defense mechanism is, on overdrive right now. But the fact that in this episode, like you were saying, he calls Michael Mike, like that's more of a respectful yet casual um use of his name. I mean,
yeah,
he didn't say what he could have said. Any other number of derogatory nicknames that
king of
Sawyer has
nicknames.
been famous for. So,
Yeah. And just and then Sawyer listening to Michael as he's blaming himself, um, and then them both Sawyer first, but then them both coming upon the island and seeing it in the near distance, and I just thought that was a really incredible scene, from start to finish. Uh, and I mean, that leads to the discovery of Jin, but that
mhm,
moment I think it kind of highlights how the cast really carries the story through in such a great way. Um, I think several times in the first season we talked about, they cast perfectly. Like the people that we see seems like they were meant to be the character that they're playing.
yeah,
And seeing them grow, um, is just, I mean, I think that's why shows like Lost and other network shows that were on TV for years with sometimes 20 some episodes in a season where you get to like latch on to them instead of like these briefer 6 to 8 episode series which is now the like, kind of standard
mhm.
on streaming services. I think that's why a show like Lost and the characters in it can kind of, you know, have a little bit more meaning behind the entire thing. So that's my favorite scene. What about you?
It's definitely for me, it's the Michael Susan and the young Walt in the park. I think that still such a powerful scene. I definitely agree with your runner-up scenes. I would also say that I would add because it was met at a lighthearted moment, but again, like so many other scenes of the show, there's a lot of depth and there's a lot of foreshadowing that is masked under humor. And that, of course, is the exchange between Charlie and Claire.
Yeah.
Claire is like, "Oh, I wonder what's going on. What's going on now?" And Charlie was like, "Oh, it's Jack. He's probably going off to be a hero again." And she responds, "Yeah, you sure try to be, funny when you don't answer a question or, whatever." And, he just like, "Oh, I'm only trying. Like, you mean I'm not funny?"
Yeah.
You know? And then, of course, it turns kind of dark in that foreshadowing with the Virgin Mary because, he's holding the baby. And you're thinking, oh, this is so wonderful. They're
He's
kind of the
making
family
faces.
unit. Yeah, making faces. And then they're, this is a family that is blossoming from love. This is not a family, you know, it almost is the yin yang to Michael and Walt and Susan, so it's kind of an interesting switch on kind of that storyline that we're having
That's a great
to
point.
this, which is
Yeah.
definitely more relaxed. Love is blossoming. Um, so I like that scene as well because, here's this fun and yet, ooh, here's this Virgin Mary that's filled with heroin, and, uh-oh, you know, danger, danger, we know, but she
Yeah.
doesn't know. Obviously he knows what it is and, he's kind of living on the edge, with regards to still having that
Yeah. Definitely
aspect.
doesn't give you a good feeling, like seeing it.
No, no, it doesn't. So I think that's a pretty good runner-up scene as well. And, we'll definitely, I'm sure the writers will be showing more. You made a comment that I wanted to, point out, and that is the fact that when Sawyer asks Michael if he's okay, and Walt is like, I'm going to get him back. I'm going to get him back. I like that the writers just didn't automatically have Sawyer say, I'm joining the fight.
Yeah.
Um, I like that they held back because I think it's kind of human nature to kind of get, you know, join the rally of the call. And I like that they held off on that, that there's still probably going to be more issues and more challenges for our characters before Michael is reunited with Walt. Will Sawyer be part of that fight? Don't know. He didn't make a commitment at that moment, and I like that it's left kind of open. And that's something that I like how the writers of the show definitely kind of, they play with it and they allow different twists to get intertwined with the storytelling so that it's fresh and it's not reliant on the normal tropes that we and kind of human behavior that would be kind of, you know, what we would expect that might also show our inability to kind of take a stand, because how often oh, yes, let's go do this, or, and but you get involved
Yeah.
anyway, or, you know, you don't you don't hesitate when maybe you should. So, and I think that's going to be a challenge down the road.
And something else about that sequence is um I took it as because I feel like Sawyer can be very pessimistic and he could have easily said, what are you talking about, Mike? They're on a boat, they're long gone, we don't know where they are. And I like on the flip side that he didn't say anything like that and just let Mike say his piece. And I feel like Sawyer was kind of processing that.
Yeah.
And so for whatever way he was going to spin it, whether like just because he said they're long gone, that doesn't mean he wouldn't have joined them anyway. But I agree. I like that he didn't say anything. I feel like that it seems more meaningful to not just like jump in and be like, yeah, let's go because there is no going right now. Like there is
Yeah.
no finding him at the moment. So
Yeah, and that's actually interesting because Sawyer said earlier that he's trying to get Michael on the same page and give him some hope, which is kind of a rarity for Sawyer. And that's when he said, "Hey, didn't you get a good look at that boat? That's a small boat. That's a boat that hasn't traveled that far.
yeah,
Hey, maybe that boat's actually from the island, just a different part of it." So I do think he does try to give some amount of hope to Michael early on. And then as Michael decides, it's like he gives him the hope and lets him, like you said, he sits back and let Michael say his piece and kind of do his own processing while Sawyer waits for him to kind of, get to the same page, so to speak, that
yeah,
Sawyer's on, already knowing that, hey, I think that boat's, I bet they're back on the island. How far could
yeah,
they have gone?
yeah,
Or another island that's very close by that they haven't discovered yet.
yeah. Sawyer Sawyer's got some good thoughts. I think sometimes he's portrayed in a way where he's just like bullish and stubborn, and but he's thoughtful. He can,
Yeah,
you know, understand what's going on. So
yeah,
I like that.
yeah. So, we've got our favorite scenes in the bag. Now, the hard one.
Ah, yeah, no.
Favorite character of the episode.
Mm.
Back to you. I
Um,
little list, short list.
yeah, I listed Locke, Michael, Sawyer, Kate, just
Hmm.
because, you know, you got you, you got to see Kate's resourcefulness. Um, you got to see Locke being, trying to be quick and admitting to being him when Desmond asks, "Are you him?" I guess I don't know if he's supposed to be a
Hmm.
replacement or what. I don't know what he means, but then
Yeah, that was
Desmond gives him the
interesting.
like something. He gives him like a code question. What did the snowman say to the other snowman or something like that? And Locke is
Yeah,
like, "What are you talking about?" So Desmond immediately knows you're not him. Um,
yeah.
so
Oh, and
their
by the way,
sequence is
who's
good.
her? Who is she?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think ultimately it's between Michael and Sawyer. Um, ah, it's really tough. I feel like I'm gonna give it to Michael just because of, being able to display that much emotion and
Hmm.
like you said, have it contained where so much is behind the eyes and
Hmm.
um but I do think Sawyer is a close second. Like he could easily be I could easily swap him out, but I'll go with the Michael because of the fact that man, he's had it rough. So and
Yeah.
not that Sawyer hasn't. I mean, that's a whole nother can of
Yeah,
worms.
hey, he was tortured in season one, so
Um, but with this being Michael's episode with the flashbacks, I'll lean towards him.
yeah. Like you, my list was pretty short. It was Michael and Sawyer, and I think if you know, Michael does kind of edge out Sawyer, but I thought what they did in this episode was incredible. But I do have to nod to Michael, and it does come back to the park
Yeah,
sequence as well as the follow-up scene of him with Sawyer on the pontoon, and just totally breaking down, uh, physically,
yeah,
from all the emotion that was building up that he was dealing with, and confessing the guilt that he really does feel, even though he's projecting that it was Sawyer and you know that was the cause of Walt being taken. If you go back and you look at the unfolding of that sequence of events, that part of the storyline, they were all in the moment. that was happening. So, you know, Sawyer was trying to protect Walt. Yeah, I totally believe that that was why he was doing it.
100%.
And I also think that if Michael fought back, Walt was really pushing for the flare gun too.
Yeah.
And I think it ultimately that's why he did it, is because Walt really wanted the flare gun shot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to give it up for Michael on this episode.
Oh, yeah. Again, I kudos to the two of them, the actors,
Mm.
in a limited space in the water on those rafts. Like, I feel like we gained so much insight into, I don't know, just their toughness and their vulnerability. And I mean, for God's sake, again, Sawyer pulled out a bullet with his fingers. Like, jeez. Oh, I'm not adding that to the list of nominees because oh, it makes me cringe.
I think when we come to the end of the second season, one of the most tough guy dramatic moments might have to be Sawyer pulling out the bullet. I was just, what is he doing? Oh my God, is he really doing that? Oh my God, he just pulled and he flicked it into the water and then passed out.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh. Yeah.
oh,
I think we would not be doing we would be doing a disservice if we didn't what about all the questions that are left open with this episode? Starting with Desmond. Who the hell is Desmond? How did he cross paths with Jack all those years ago? How long has he been on the island? Why is he on the island? Who's he waiting for? Um, you know, who stalked him with all that stuff? Obviously, they weren't expecting to come back and see him immediately. And the fact that he still has quite an impressive storeroom of goods and
yeah.
resources means he was there for quite a long run.
And he thought
Um,
like the world was over. He's like, the world is
yeah,
still out there. Like, and Locke's like,
yeah.
as far as I know, like,
Yeah. And I'm almost like, did you get sold a bill of goods that, the world was ending and, Dharma was setting you up so that you could survive?
did Desmond join a cult?
I know. I'm like, well, if he's Adam, where's Eve? You know? And
Yeah.
he's there by himself. So, yeah,
Asking if people got sick.
yeah, yeah.
So
And of course,
tons
we
of
have
questions.
the
Yep.
others. Who are they? They don't look like a real happy welcoming committee. That's for sure.
Do we
Um,
need a counter for how many times Jin has been tied up or in shackles?
I know. I think we do. I
That's at
That
least
poor
the
man.
third or fourth time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But yeah, so I'm very curious about who the others are, and so uh, I did, see that episode 3 is titled Orientation. So that should be an interesting episode. And I don't know about you, but I'm going to be excited to be talking about that next week. So.
I'm ready to go. Yeah. Now that we're back, we had our hiatus. We're back into it, and I'm so
Yep.
jazzed to get to the next episode. Because there's so much that happens, you can't remember everything. I can't remember everything, so I'm
Yeah.
pumped.
Yeah. Me too. Anxious to talk next week and see. Oh my God, that is Gwendolyn. That's
Oh,
4. And you guys never see Gwendolyn. Wow.
wow.
Ooh. So for
Okay.
those intrepid viewers, you've seen 2 torties. We actually have 3. I don't think Pocky's ever shown up on screen before. But
Hmm. We'll have to go back through the film.
yeah. But yeah. Anyway. Well, I'm excited, Travis, and I hope all of our listeners and watchers are excited to join us again next week when we talk about episode 3. of the second season of one of the most phenomenal series that graced TV land, Lost.
Absolutely. Looking
Well,
forward
thanks,
to it.
everyone. See you next week.